Well, thank you again and welcome to the Institute of Managers and Leaders for our 5th webinar today of the IML ANZ Development Day. It's been a massive day of learning and I've certainly taken in a huge amount, as I'm sure you have as well. My name's Sam Bell. I'm the General Manager of Corporate Services and I'm hosting today, and it's been a real pleasure to hear from our leading facilitators from across the country talk about pertinent management and leadership topics. The Institute since 1941 has provided management and leadership development to its members, corporate clients and corporate members. IML, as we're known in the market, runs a range of leadership programs across Australia, and today's content is all built from our leadership programs, and indeed our facilitators today are our facilitators of our leadership program. So it really gives the best of what IML does. One of the other pieces that I'd love to mention also is our membership network, and the fact that it gives the opportunity for more experienced managers to share their insights and share their experience with the membership network, and also younger managers and leaders through things like the IML mentoring program and coaching and further coaching and learning and development pieces that we offer as the Institute. Now let's move on to our 5th session today, which is building your team's resilience. And resilience is the name of the game for Jackie Perkins, who's our facilitator, a wonderful presenter, high energy, and I'm really looking forward to Jackie's presentation today. I was going to go and get a coffee, Jackie, but I felt that your energy and your enthusiasm will certainly get me through for the next hour or so. So resilience, like emotional intelligence, is a skill, meaning that it can be learnt. Are some people born with a natural predisposition towards being more resilient than others? Absolutely. You only have to look at how differently your children react and respond to hardship, even though they were raised in the same environment with mostly the same parents. But there are certain strategies we can decide to practice on a daily basis that will help our teams to be more resilient. In this webinar, Jackie will share some of these simple yet effective strategies that will put you in place to keep yourself and your team resilient. And Jackie Perkins, as I said earlier, is our foundations facilitator here for IML, but has also done a range of corporate work with us, with some of our corporate clients, including Gentech Seeds, QUT, Cubiotics, and Trade and Investment Queensland. As well, Jackie combines her real life experience, which we love so much, and I'm sure she'll use plenty of those examples, with her in-depth knowledge that she's gained through working across many industries in both South Africa and Australia. And Jackie's led a national sales team, and she's been a consultant facilitating for Deloitte in the past. And as I said, brings a huge amount of experience in facilitating and sharing her experience and insight. And I'm delighted to welcome Jackie Perkins today to present on building your team's resilience. Over to you, Jackie.
Thank you, Sam. So I have to acknowledge and admit that I always get a little bit nervous when I have a really good drum roll before I present, because then people think, oh, it's going to be awesome, and then what if it isn't? And I do suffer a little bit from the imposter syndrome, or actually a great deal from the imposter syndrome. If you're not sure what that is, go Google it. But it's when you think someone's going to figure out that actually you don't know what the hell you're talking about. And today's the day. When it comes to the topic of resilience, that's probably one topic where I go, actually, I'm right in my comfort zone. I live and breathe this stuff. I've lived and breathed it for many years. And I'm going to take you on a bit of a personal journey today, because everything I'm about to share with you, I actually have put in place, and I've actually seen the results of it, and I know it works. So for probably out of all the topics, this is the topic where I go, actually, I feel pretty confident about what I'm about to share with you, and I hope you really get some good value out of it, whether you are an HR manager, a leader of a team, or a team member, and really just need some good tips and techniques and strategies. So just before we get into that, I think it might be helpful to just share a little bit of my story with you, and I'm going to be very transparent with you. Probably 3 key things that I think demonstrate the ability to develop some of these tips and tools are, number one, in 2009, New Year's Day to be exact. My husband and myself and our 3 kids got on a plane from South Africa to Australia. We arrived here. We'd never visited this country before. We didn't know a single soul here. We didn't have jobs. We moved into a caravan park and then discovered that the aeroplane had hit the tarmac at the beginning of the global financial recession, and that unless you were a Queenslander or an Australian, it was very hard to find work, and if you were over 45 with no network, it was almost impossible. And so began the job of requalifying, trying to set up a business. My husband, who's got a business degree and an MBA, went and worked in factories, driving taxis, packing boxes, doing whatever it took. And I slowly tried to get my business up and running and create a network and redo all my qualifications and accreditations. I no sooner felt like, wow, we're on the way, we've got this happening and it's working, then I had to have a spinal fusion. You can see the scar here. This is not a wrinkle, I just want to tell you, it's a scar. I'm very proud of it, where they fused my C5 and C6. And when I came out of the operation, I couldn't talk above a whisper. Hence, I used my microphone, and my surgeon had paralyzed my right vocal cord. I had endless surgical procedures to enable me to talk, but I was determined to carry on running my business of training and coaching and consulting. January this year, I sat back and went, wow, we've built a really great business. I'm having fantastic financial success. And I think on the 25th, 26th of March, within the space of 48 hours, I'd received either an email or a phone call from every one of my clients canceling everything for the remainder of this year. And I will admit to you that I probably spent the first 24 hours lying in a pool of self-pity and sobbing and crying, and I'm doomed and my business is doomed and we're going to lose our house. Until I went, Jackie, you've done this before, you'll do it again. You haven't worked this hard to build a business just to give it away. Get up, get dressed, show up, put your best foot forward and make it happen. So I picked up the phone and I phoned every single client and I said, we can do this. We've got technology. We can put it all into a virtual platform. Let's make it happen. And I'd also been threatening to create online products, which I for years and hadn't got around to do it. So I hired a videographer and off I went and started videoing a whole leadership series and creating virtual platforms that I've been terrified of, quite frankly, but I had to do it. And now 2 months, 3 months later, I've managed to hold on to my business and I've learned a whole set of new skills. And so resilience is the key. And what I want to share with you is probably one of my favorite little quotes, which is from Winston Churchill, who says, success is not final, failure is not fatal. It's the courage to continue that counts. So I really want us to think about that, is that it's just about keeping going, keeping going. And I know we had a session today on momentum. It is about just keeping that momentum, just put one foot in front of the other. And resilience is about just being courageous. We don't need to know the answers. We don't need to know what, the strategy is. We just need the courage to put one foot in front of the other. So when we look at what is resilience, what do you think it is? Is it about being tough and strong? Is it something that you're born with? Is it about actually just coming through life with a poker face and not letting anyone know that actually behind doors you're having a complete meltdown? So as Sam alluded to, resilience is something that we are born with, but it is also definitely a trait that we can master. Not a trait, a skill that we can master. So this definition I really enjoy because it really puts the emphasis on it being a set of skills and a process that we can build, rather than just saying, oh, well, I drew the short straw when I got born. I didn't get any resilience. My brother, however, or my sister, however, they just got all the resilience in the family. So whatever amount of resilience we do or don't have naturally, I really want to encourage you that if we put some certain practices in place, we can really build our resilience. And I want us to see every opportunity of hardship and adversity as a great, great opportunity to build some of these techniques and these skills. So one of my little favorite sayings is, adversity not only builds character, it reveals character. So to stop and say, well, in this time of adversity, what do I want people to see in me? What is this an opportunity to demonstrate to my family, to my team, to my peers, to my community? So I'm going to be sharing with you seven tips today. And just before I share those 7 tips with you, I want you to think about, what do these people that I've put on this slide here have in common? So what do the Beatles, Michael Jordan, Thomas Edison, Walt Disney, and Abraham Lincoln have in common? Have a think about that. Every single one of them has been told by the so-called industry experts in their field that they didn't have what it took to be successful. Every one of them suffered rejection. Every one of them had multiple failures. And yet they all eventually triumphed. And they triumphed because they were resilient. They never gave up. They kept getting back up and trying again. So when we think about resilience in our team, I want us to think about how we can be building that predisposition within our teams. And to do that, I want us to look at the word fail or failure. So I love the acronym first attempt in learning. So instead of I failed, it was a first attempt in learning. So if any of you have had children or currently are raising young children, you might remember or be currently going through the experience where you've got a young child that is just learning to walk, maybe 10 months, 11 months, a year. And let's say they take their first step and they land on their bum as they do. Do we as a parent go, oh my God, you're never gonna walk, just stick to sitting? Or do we go, oh my goodness, that's amazing, you took a step, let's see if you can take another one, that's so good. Now, obviously, it's the second one. But what happens is we get a little bit old and a little bit more jaded. We don't have these cheerleaders in our life like our moms and our dads telling us every day that we're amazing and we're incredible and we just need to try again and we'll be okay. So when we're leaders, I want us to think about how can we create an environment that is risk-friendly, where when people make mistakes, we can say, well, what did we learn from this? What can we do differently next time? So I'm going to really just encourage us, whether it's for ourselves or whether it's for our team, that we think about whether we're wearing a judger hat or whether we're wearing a learner hat. So if we've got the judger hat on, we'll say, what the hell's wrong with you? Why did you do that? Even an idiot wouldn't do that. Or whose fault is that? If we put the learner hat on, we would go, what could we learn from this experience? What will we do differently next time? What opportunity does this present? So I'm really trying to get us to think about not only strategies and techniques for right now in the middle of COVID-19, I'm really wanting us to think about strategies and techniques going forward that in our day-to-day business as usual, we start to develop an environment where we actually embrace risk. We embrace failure as a learning opportunity rather than the end of the world. So there are going to be a number of resources that will be sent out to you at the end of this webinar. And one of them is a video clip called Life Equals Risk. And it's all about the fact that you have these incredibly successful people that have been failures before they were successful. And it's an incredibly motivational video. So, sorry, I don't want to make it play. I'm going to go on to, it's embedded into the PowerPoints. So let's kick off with our 7 steps to resilience. The first little tip that I want you to think about, and is probably my most favorite, is creating your own narrative. So Mark Twain is famous for saying, my life has been filled with terrible misfortunes, most of which have never happened. So we have all these thoughts whizzing around in our heads all day. Apparently we have anything from 16,000 to 80,000 thoughts a day. I refer to these thoughts as stories, and I also refer to these stories as either being healthy, helpful, and productive, or unhealthy, unhelpful, and unproductive. And I'm going to suggest that we choose these thoughts like we choose our clothes. So some of us might think these thoughts just come into our head unbidden and then they're just there and there's nothing we can do about it. But I want us to think about this analogy, that if you get up and get dressed in the morning and you go into your closet and you take clothes off the hangers and you put them onto yourself, if you're anything like me, you're going to go look in the mirror and you're going to make sure that it does certain jobs, like, does it cover my fat, flabby arms so you can't see the fat going good-wang if I'm writing up on a flip chart? So is that a tick box? Does it hang loosely over my stomach so you don't see the rolls of fat there? Does it go over my childbearing hips as a nice little jacket so you don't see that fat? And then I stand in front of the mirror, and if I go, yeah, good there, I'm ready, then I'm happy. But if I look in that mirror and I go, oh, nah, I take those items of clothes off and I hang them back up. And I keep doing that until I look in the mirror and go, I'm ready. Now, I really want us to encourage this to do with our teams and with ourselves. What are your thoughts? Are they healthy, helpful, and productive for what you need to do now? If you have a team meeting, a performance review, a conflict that you need to resolve, strategies that you need to rebuild your business, trying to remotivate your team to keep them engaged, are those thoughts healthy, helpful, and productive? So these are some examples of some unhealthy, unhelpful, and unproductive thoughts that we might be having right now, like, oh my God, the world's going to hell in a handbag. We're never going to recover from this recession. It's going to be really hard to hit our revenue targets. How are we possibly going to stay motivated in this situation? Now, what I'd like you to do is to maybe just take a little snapshot of those and think about how you would take those clothes off, hang them up on the hangers, and take different clothes off and put them on. That would actually create a different emotional state to what this is going to create. This is going to make me feel anxious, overwhelmed, defeated. What's the point? And that in turn is going to influence the decisions I make. It's going to influence the actions I take, and then it's going to influence the outcomes. So if you think about when I told you that I spent 24 hours in a pool of self-pity, sobbing and crying that I'm about to lose my business, that wouldn't have engendered any decent actions like picking up the phone and just saying, let's make this happen. I had to say to myself, Jackie, you can do this. You've overcome tragedies. You've overcome roadblocks before. You've got the skills. You've got the resources. This is an opportunity to use virtual technology. Get up and make it happen. And then we're able to put the actions in place and we then get the outcomes. So here are some suggested different internal narratives that we could be having that are more healthy, more helpful, and more productive. You know, so instead of what have we lost, what have we gained from this experience? I had a really empowering and energizing masterclass recently. I was running the masterclass, but I can honestly say I think I walked away with it with more than anyone that attended it, because I put people into breakout rooms from companies and industries from all over Australia to discuss how they could look at this situation from a productive perspective. And these were some of the things that they came up with. They said there's some skills that they've learned that they were meaning to learn and they've now mastered, that their teams are engaging more regularly than they ever engaged before, that they've got things done within their business that they've always meant to get done, but they've never had time to do it. They've got to know each other better within teams and within the organization. They've built trust because they've all been in a similar situation. They've got to know each other's families better, understanding people's families' backgrounds. And just so many incredibly powerful things came out of those conversations. So when you finish watching this webinar, I just want you to think about your future team meetings, and I want you to think about maybe posing some of these questions. What have you learned from this experience? You know, what's been beneficial? What's right with this picture? What are you equipped to do now that you don't think you were equipped to do before? What are you going to take into the future in terms of our business that we didn't do before? What processes have maybe become redundant as a result of what we're going through right now? And I'm quite confident that you will start to feel a lot more energized and motivated about the way forward if we really just challenge our thinking. Which leads us on to tip number 2. So tip number 2 again is choosing what you focus on. And I'm sure most of you are really familiar with Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And this is one of his little gems. We are either operating from a circle of influence or we're operating from our circle of concern. Now, circle of concern is reactive. Circle of concern is where I feel pretty powerless. Circle of concern is where I can do nothing about it. So right now, having to maybe work from home, maybe having to work remotely, maybe some of the restrictions around COVID-19, I'm powerless to change that unless I'm in a very senior position in government. But circle of influence is I can choose how often I connect with my team. I can choose as to what we're going to cover in those team meetings. I can choose to add value, or I can choose to sit back and say, well, it's your job to support me. It's your job to help me. Or I can say, actually, how am I going to add value in this time? How can I reach out to one of my fellow team members and help them if they're struggling right now? What is something we could be doing differently right now? So what are we going to focus on? We're going to focus on the things we can actually control rather than the things that we can't, which just make us feel powerless. So our third little tip is our physiology. Now, hand in hand with your narrative, these two are probably the most powerful little techniques you can master to really make yourself feel powerful. And when I use the word powerful, I don't mean arrogant or better than anybody else. I mean that you feel confident to be your authentic self. So if you haven't come across Amy Cuddy, this will come out in the resources that IML sends to you. She's got a brilliant TED talk on power poses. And she's got all this research to suggest that when we actually stand with our shoulders back, when we actually stand tall, if we power pose for 2 minutes before we go into a stressful situation, our cortisol, our stress hormone, actually plummets, and our testosterone, our power hormone, actually goes up and elevates. So our physiology has a massive impact on how we feel. So if we're going to sit with our shoulders down and our eyes cast down, we are actually going to start to feel overwhelmed. We're going to start to feel defeated. So if we can really master our thoughts and if we can really be aware of our physiology, it can make a massive impact on how we're feeling and start to build our resilience and our ability to cope. Now, our next little tip is understanding our attitude towards stress. Now, generally speaking, if we talk about stress, and if I had to say to you, do you see stress as a good thing or a bad thing? Most of us probably off the tip of our tongue would go, it's a bad thing. I want to challenge that for a minute. And if you haven't come across Kelly McGonigal, I'm really going to encourage you to have a look at her TED Talk. And again, IML will send out these resources. So there's a great little TED Talk, How to Make Stress Your Friend by Kelly McGonigal. And she really talks about the science of our biology and how when we get into a stressful situation, the feelings that we experience is actually our body's way of giving us the biology of courage. So that's what I want you to think about, is that when you start to feel maybe that little nausea in your stomach, or that perspiration above your lip or whatever, instead of going, oh my God, I'm stressing, I can't cope, is go, oh, this is my body giving me the biology of courage. I'm going to be okay. The other thing I want us to think about when it comes to stress is looking at this performance curve. So we might think, I just don't want any stress in my life. But if we look at the left-hand side, you'll see that if I don't have enough going on in my life, if I'm not being stretched out of my comfort zone and learning new things and being challenged, I'm actually going to start to feel bored or mild alertness or even just wanting to sleep. And this is known as eustress. And obviously, by the same token, if I flip over to the other extreme, and I'm now really super out of my comfort zone, and it's chronically out of my comfort zone, I might start to feel distress. So we obviously want to look for this sweet spot where we have enough going on in our life that we feel we do have a certain level of control over, and I feel a certain level of being in my comfort zone. But I also want to have that little part of my life where I'm stretching myself and challenging myself. So when we do come out the other side of COVID-19, I'm really hoping that we don't go, oh, thank God, all done and dusted, that we continue to say, well, wow, that in some ways, many parts of that experience were quite energizing. I actually wasn't aware I was capable of learning some of the technology that I've learned or adapting to the situation as well as I did. I actually want to keep on challenging myself to extend myself out of my comfort zone and see what else I'm capable of. So now our next tip is all around mindfulness. Now, if any of you have ever had this thought about meditating or mindfulness, I can't do that, I can't sit still long enough, I can't sit there going, you're not alone. And this is why I really want to encourage you to have a look at Andy Puddicombe. He has got a brilliant TED Talk called All It Takes is 10 Mindful Minutes. And he really appealed to me because he's a regular bloke, a down-to-earth regular bloke, even though he's now a monk. But he talks to you in such a relaxed, easy way that if there's anyone that's going to help you understand mindfulness and meditation and get you going with the practice, this is someone that would be helpful to have a listen to. He's got a really good little app called Headspace. You can just download it onto your phone, and then you can set it up as a reminder every day. Now, why is this so important in terms of building your team's resilience? Let's think about this. We will put time aside to go to the dentist to make sure our teeth are okay. We will make time to go to a nutritionist to make sure that we're feeding our body the right food. We'll go to a doctor. We might go to a physio. But do we place the same emphasis on making sure that my brain, my mind is getting the same attention that I give the rest of my body? So when we practice mindfulness, you're giving your poor brain an opportunity to rest, just to simply rest, to stop this na all the time. Remember, I mentioned we have up to 80,000 thoughts a day. So when we practice mindfulness, it's like flossing your teeth, it's like brushing your teeth, it's like giving your brain a bit of a recharge and giving it an opportunity just to stop and just to rest so it can reset. And there's so much research that suggests that when we practice mindfulness on a regular basis, we actually cope better, we're calmer. In fact, there's even research to suggest we reduce the grey matter around the amygdala, the emotional brain, and increase the grey matter around the prefrontal cortex, the rational brain. So there's so many benefits to putting this into our daily practice. And I think these are things we could be sharing with our team because it's going to make them more productive at work. It's going to make them cope with challenging situations. All of these techniques are around being proactive, proactively putting steps into place so that when the shit hits the fan, we actually have the mental capacity and the physiological capacity to deal with it. So just like an Olympic swimmer or runner, we wouldn't just say, off you go, run that race, swim that race. They train every day to build up that capacity to deal with that situation when they run that race. It's the same with resilience. We cannot possibly expect to handle a difficult situation if we haven't been putting the practice in place to give our brain the mental capacity to deal with it and our bodies the physiology to handle it. So my next little tip is around Rewiring Our Brain by Shawn Achor. Now, he talks in his TED Talk about how we can put practices in place to rewire our brain so that our brain is more predisposed to process events in our life as opportunities rather than threats. Now, I love this TED Talk. I've probably watched it over 80 times. When you watch it, you'll see you have to watch it at least more than once because he talks very quickly. He's also written a brilliant book called The Happiness Advantage. This will also come out in your resources from IML. But it's really about putting practices in place to teach your brain that when it experiences an event, we don't automatically go into a threat response, that we can actually process that event as an opportunity. And this again is going to help us respond far more productively to difficult situations. So I'm going to share with you some of these daily rituals that he suggests that you put into place. And I'd like you to think about how you could do this with your teams and get them to actually do this on a regular basis. So the first little tip that he talks about is writing down 3 things you're grateful for. Now, why would you do that? So it's very easy to remember the things that are bugging us, annoying us, upsetting us, overwhelming us. But if we actually start to list all the things that are actually right in our situation, it's amazing how we can never run out of these opportunities. So just like, for instance, I've got a roof over my head, I've got electricity, I've got a computer, I've got internet connection, I've got a fridge in the kitchen full of food. Now, you know I'm from South Africa. I was just on the phone the other day to family and friends in South Africa. And what they are going through right now, through this lockdown, there are queues as long as 3 kilometers long for food parcels. I go, thank the Lord, I'm in Australia. There's a never-ending list of things that still are absolutely incredible right now for each and every one of us living in Australia. So with our teams, what I'd like you to think about doing is before you end off a meeting or say goodbye to someone, to say, what is the best thing that happened to you today? What is something you're most proud of today, to get them to think about those experiences? Which leads me on to the second one, journaling a good experience. So instead of just listing 3 good things, when you journal it, you're actually creating the neural pathways to relive that good experience. So let's think about it like this. So before we were working from home, we might have had a situation where something really horrible happened at work. And maybe just as I was leaving the office, someone said, how was your day? And I go, oh, it was terrible. You will never believe what happened. And then I get home and I walk in the door and maybe one of my kids or my husband says, how was your day? And I go, oh, it was awful. You'll never believe what happened. And then maybe that evening I might phone my mom or talk to someone and they say, how was your day? And I go and repeat it again. So now 3 times I've entrenched this horrible event that happened to me. So what we want to do is to try and entrench the good things that are happening to us. And this is going to create the neural pathways that remind us that good things are happening in our world, not just the bad things. So an example for me is my mom and dad are living in an aged care facility in Victoria. And when I phone my mom, she just rattles off every single thing that is going wrong, and she repeats it and she repeats it and she repeats it. And I can almost see her mood changing. I can hear her mood changing from the beginning of the conversation to the end of the conversation. She works herself up into a state because she's just repeating all these things that have gone wrong. So maybe as a family, it's, saying, well, what was the best thing that happened to you today? What was something good that happened at school or at work or at university? What is something that you were really proud of today? So that they leave the day or end the day on really revisiting good experiences rather than the bad experiences. Now, exercise is a no-brainer. We all know there's so much research around this, but I'm just going to give you this one little mantra: move to improve your mood. Move to improve your mood. So one of the great things that's come out of this lockdown for me is I now don't have to do an hour-and-a-half commute to get to a client in the morning or an hour-and-a-half back. And so I've been walking in the forest every morning with my dog and my husband, and then coming back and doing a 15-minute yoga practice. And I promise you, if I'm going to be absolutely honest, I wake up in the morning and I do feel anxious. I do feel worried. There are a lot of things that are going through my mind, and it's dark and it's cold now because it's winter. And once I get up and I'm walking, and you can hear the birds and you can start to see the sunshine, and you're in the forest and you're with your dog, and then you come back and do the breathing and the meditation with the yoga, by the time I finish that session, I go, I'm good. I'm actually looking forward to today. I'm actually going to be okay. And yet when I wake up, my instinct is just to lie in bed and not get out of bed. So really challenge yourself to put in some daily exercise, which is the same with the meditation. So really go and look at Andy Puddycombe and look at his headspace and think about how you can start to introduce some small little easy practices of meditation. Now, the last little ritual there that Sean Aker is suggesting is thanking someone in your personal and professional network. Now, you might be asking, well, how is that going to help? So before you go to bed at night, what I'm going to encourage you to do is to either send an email or a text to someone in your team or someone in your company or maybe in your family or your friendship group, and thank them genuinely for something specific that they've done. So instead of, when we're saying goodbye to team members, we say, hey, cheers, thanks for everything. So sort of a very generic thanks, that you give a very deliberate thank you for what you did today. You went above and beyond in helping me with this particular project or helping me out with that customer request or that customer complaint. It took a massive weight off my shoulders. I really appreciate it. And just every night before you switch off, just think of someone in your professional network, maybe someone specifically within your team that you can flick a little text to or just send a little email to. What is it going to do? Well, number one, it's going to make your team member feel validated and acknowledged and that they're purposeful, number one. But number two, let's coming back from a very selfish perspective, it's going to remind you that there are good people in this world. So right now, particularly with COVID-19, there's a lot of suspicion. There's a lot of anxiety around what are people's agendas? What are politicians' agendas? Is there a huge big conspiracy theory going on here? Why the hell is this happening? Is China going for world domination? Are we all going to end up starving to death? Like all these thoughts can be going through our head around evil, horrible, terrible people. But when we make a point of thanking someone every day for something they've done to us, for us, it reminds us that we've got good people in our network. In our world, we've got good people. And that takes us back into focusing on what we can actually influence, rather than this huge, big, overwhelming situation that we have no control over. So I'd really like to encourage you when you have your next team meeting is to go through these 5 rituals and to think about discussing them with your team members and talking about how you could actually introduce them in a personal level, but maybe what are some things you could be doing as a team as well. Now, my last little tip is the one around knowing your purpose, your why. So if you haven't come across Viktor Frankl before, I'm really going to encourage you to read his book, Man's Search for Meaning. So Viktor Frankl is or was a German psychiatrist. He was captured and put into the Nazi concentration camps. And he was fascinated when studying people within the concentration camps as to why some people actually would give their last piece of bread to somebody else, or why someone would survive and be tenacious and determined to survive where other people would give up. And what he really believes is that people that had a purpose bigger than their day-to-day life in that concentration camp, people that really believed there was a future and that there was a reason for them being on this planet, that there were family they were going to connect with, or that they had a legacy to leave or a purpose to fulfill, are the ones that survived the best. It makes me also think of Nelson Mandela, who spent 27 years in Robben Island. His cell was so small he could touch both walls with his hands, and he spent 27 years in there. He was allowed out to pick rocks outside in the boiling sun, and he used to meditate on that poem Invictus, which was all about being the captain of your soul, not losing your dignity. And he kept that vision around what he wanted to do as the first Black president of South Africa, what he wanted to achieve and what that vision was going to mean for him. And he held onto that really tightly, which kept him going. Now, I'm not suggesting that we have to have these incredibly lofty, high ideals. Let's bring it back down to the nitty-gritty of being in a team. I want to encourage you, when you next talk with your teams, to ask them, what is your why? Why did you join this particular industry? Why did you join this particular company? Why did you choose to do the job that you're doing? What were you hoping to bring? What purpose did you hope to fulfill? What value did you want to contribute to your community, to the organization, to your team? And I want you to get them to really articulate that and to share it in a meeting, and that whenever they're getting overwhelmed or down, is to revisit that. Now, particularly in this COVID-19, I've been coaching a number of clients, and I've had some of these examples being shared with me. So I've had some team leaders that have said to me, Jackie, what do you do in a situation where we've got team members that have been asked to take a big pay cut, like a 30% pay cut or a 40% pay cut? And some of the team leaders have been saying, you know, I actually could earn more in JobKeepers right now and not work than right now what I'm earning, and I've never worked so hard in my life. I'm working incredibly long hours, but I'm actually earning the same as if I got JobKeepers and lost my job. So I can't actually see the point in this. Well, the point is, the one, I get to sit at home on my fat ass and get my JobKeepers and not really feel particularly proud of what I'm doing or contributing. Or the other one is, I get the opportunity to add value, to upskill myself, to be present, to be learning, to be engaged, to be developing, and actually helping a business stay afloat. And that would be my why. So I really want to encourage you to go and ask your team members, what is their purpose? What value are they bringing? When they joined your organization, what attracted them? When they joined that particular job, what about that job really actually, you know, just blew their hair back, that makes them throw the doona off in the morning and go, this is why I do what I do? And articulate that and share that, and just get everyone to remember that and to tap into that, especially when we're feeling a little bit down, a little bit anxious, or we feel a little bit defeated. There's always a bigger purpose. And something I've been really encouraging people to do is, when you're with your teams, instead of you as leaders feeling that all the responsibility is on your shoulders to keep them motivated, to keep them engaged, to actually maybe share some of that responsibility and say, team, yes, I acknowledge part of my job as a leader is to help you stay motivated and engaged, but also I'd like you to think about how you can add value. What can you bring? What can you share? So when you have a virtual team meeting, don't just sit there going, well, what am I going to learn? But what am I going to share? What value am I going to add? What learning am I going to actually introduce to my team so that other people can benefit from this? And on that note, encourage people to become each other's accountability buddies. So it's not just you, the team leader, having to do everything, but encourage your team members to hook up, become accountability buddies, and hold each other account to keeping each other motivated and keeping each other engaged. So I've given you 7 really big tips. You've got a little handout that encourages you to choose your 3 key points. So I'd really like you to think about, what are your top 3 out of what we've discussed today that maybe you would like to do for yourself, or maybe you'd like to introduce them to your team, or if you're an HR manager, you would maybe like to introduce it to the entire business. So that brings us to the end of our tips for building resilience. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hand over to Sam so that he can manage the questions and answers. Thanks very much, Sam. Are you there, Sam? I've probably handed over a little bit too quickly to Sam. So unfortunately, I don't have the questions in front of me. Otherwise, I would immediately start answering for you. So what I'm going to just get you to think about while we just wait for Sam to jump on is I want you to think about what are some things that you can do on Monday morning. What are some things you can do on Monday morning with your team? How can you take some of these tips and strategies and tools and share them with your team and get them to start implementing them from this next week coming up? And also go and have a look at the resources that IML will send out to you. So we've got the Amy Cuddy Power Poses, which is one of my favorites. We've got the TED Talk by Sean Aker. And he's also got the book, The Happy Advantage. We've got Andy Puddycomb's 10 Mindful Minutes. Those are, and the Kelly McGonigal, don't forget the Kelly McGonigal. Hello, Sam. How to Make Stress Your Friend. So Sam, handing over to you.
Sorry, Jackie, I just had a slight technical glitch. I couldn't get my screen back on, so my apologies about that. I certainly, once again, a wonderful presentation, Jackie, and some amazing comments here that have come through. Certainly some fellow South Africans have commented that it's great to hear the accent again. So that was good, and John noted that he had also had an audio glitch when something hit the fan. So that was very exciting. But let's get to some of the questions because some of them here are probably going to take a little while to answer. But would you give your team a journal to encourage daily rituals? To establish a focus or a mindset as a team, particularly in a virtual environment?
Yes, absolutely. So one of the things I've actually introduced with some of my clients now, because of the virtual platform, is I actually post them each a little journal. And I say after every catch up that we've had, I want you to actually go away and journal it, because it's an opportunity for self-reflection, which is really, really important. But then it's an opportunity to write down some specific things that they might want to put in place as well.
Jackie, thank you. What would your approach or advice be when approaching bad leadership, when pay cuts are not as fair as leaders or kept their pay and others? So going through this process at the moment, how do you, I guess, keep your resilience through times when you probably don't see fairness?
Okay, yep. And I've come across that quite a bit as well. So you may or may not be familiar with Dr. David Rock's SCARF model, but he talks about the fact that we all have a need for status, which is the need to be recognized, the need for certainty, the need for autonomy, the need for relatedness, the need to belong, and the need for fairness. So fairness is a very big driver for all of us. So when we see fairness not being measured out, it actually triggers a threat response, which is why people actually get quite highly emotional about unfair situations. I think the thing is to go back to that internal narrative, is that what can I control, what can I not control? So if these decisions have been made by a higher body that I can't control, I either can influence by going to set up a meeting and having a meeting with the people that I feel can influence those decisions. But the worst thing I want to do is to go down that rabbit hole of why should I bother? Why should I work as hard as anybody else? Because I'm not earning what they're earning. So can I just share a really great little testimonial to this point? One of my clients was told that they're a gym, they're a massive gym. So everyone had to stand down, and their top club manager went and got a job at Coles. Within a week, she was promoted to team leader, and within a month, she'd been made national customer manager because she was prepared to do the lowest of jobs when she'd had a top national sales job. And other people from the same company went and got jobs at Coles and went, no, it's beneath me, I'm not doing it. And then have sat without an income and just their job keepers. So I'm really going to encourage you, even if it's unfair, what are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with yourself? Are you going to be proud of yourself and how you responded, even if the situation was unfair?
Thanks, Jackie. Do you think that emotional buoyancy is different to resilience, or perhaps part of it, from Catherine?
So I think you need to be emotionally buoyant to be resilient. Yes. So you would need to say, what is my emotional state right now? Is it healthy, helpful, and productive for me? And if not, how can I change that? So I really want to stress this is not about running around and being Pollyanna and being all happy and sunshine and unicorns. It's acknowledging right now I feel really down, stressed, depleted. Is this emotional state serving me? Is it helping me? No, it's not. How can I look at it differently? So if I smoke and I need to get rid of my habit of smoking, I can't just stop smoking. I've got to start chomping celery sticks. I've got to replace one with the other.
Okay, some great tips. Okay, so this is one we get a lot, particularly from some of the more experienced members of the membership network here at IML. I have a lot of younger staff new to their career in corporate life, and they seem to be less resilient than, dare I say, other generations. Any tips on building resilience in the younger generation to avoid the blame culture or conflict within the workplace?
Yeah, and I hear this so often as well. I'm going to share a little mantra that was on my kids' school board as you drove into the school. It had this board up that said, your children will grow up into what you expect of them. Your children will grow up into what you expect of them. So as managers, I believe we need to be conveying, I expect more from you. I expect more from you. I believe you're capable of more. Right now, you have an opportunity to go through a crisis that you're going to be able to talk to your future generations about, and you've got an opportunity to talk about how you actually came out the other end on top, or how you actually crumbled in this situation. Be thankful for this opportunity. Look at your grandparents, look at your great-grandparents, look at the resilience they have because of what they've been through. This is your opportunity to build this resilience. So really just, talk and communicate that level of expectation into your team.
Excellent response, Jackie. And perhaps this fits in somewhere into that is, what if resilience training, if you sort of promoted and tried as a manager in terms of embedding some of the things you talked about, is just seen as flogging staff harder, and a sort of complain less attitude and be resilient sort of thing. How do you sort of balance, I guess, the two to make sure that we're coming along with you?
Yeah, very good. So again, I often refer to a thing called the WIFM factor, what's in it for me. And I'm going to suggest, unless you're Mother Teresa, we all look at every situation as what's in it for me. So if I run a session of resilience, if I think my manager's only doing this to make me work harder so that my manager gets more out of me, I'm going to go, nah, not interested. But if my manager's running a session on resilience because they genuinely care about me and are invested in me and want the best for me, I'm going to buy in it. So I think it's the way we communicate it. We're doing this resilience training to support you, to help you, not just because we want to flog a dead horse.
Thanks, Jackie. There are a number of questions here that we might take on notice because we've got to move on. But I thank you. What I want to say is I want to, Sarah Moore has written a comment. Thank you so much, Jackie. I love the whole presentation, your experiences and insights into what we think. So someone's just written another one. where are we? Into what we think and can do differently have been truly inspirational.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your
I think that goes for, I think there's a huge number of comments here coming through saying, you know, it was a fantastic investment of their time to listen to you. So Jackie, on behalf of IML, thank you so much for coming and presenting. As you do for many of our corporate clients, indeed our foundations program, we thank you so much for your time and sharing your insights and deeply personal insights as well, which certainly have resonated with the audience today. So thank you so much. If there's if anyone would like to speak to Jackie, please contact info@managersandleaders.com.au. We can organise that and facilitate that and make sure that Jackie obviously, you know, is an amazing force of enthusiasm and energy and passion for the Institute, and certainly we're so proud that she works with us and you know, obviously developing and improving the skills of managers and leaders of our member base and also indeed our corporate members. So Jackie, thank you so much. 1300 661 061 if you'd like to call us about anything, but also info@managersandleaders.com.au is a great way to get in touch. I hope that your action plans are full of actions. As I said, I always say we're not about ticking the box here at IML. We're actually about actionable outputs, so things that you can translate straight back into the workplace. And it's pretty clear from the comments that are continuing to come through as I talk that everyone's going to be implementing a lot into their workplaces they've learnt from you, Jackie. So thank you so much again. And we move on to the final webinar shortly at 3 o'clock with Kerry-Ann Cassidy on emotional intelligence for remote work success. So emotional intelligence coming up next in about 15 minutes. But as I said, please get in touch with us if you'd like any more information. All of these resources, I should add, will be sent to you, a recording of today's session, plus Jackie's resources that she talked about so kindly when I had my technical glitch, and also the playbook that we'll be sending with all of these resources as part of it will be sent to you all shortly. So thank you very much for your attention, and we'll see you all soon.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Cheers.